Section 22A of the Elections Act. Thanks for your input, sir. We'd like us to shift focus right now away from matters devolution, and just tomorrow the world will be celebrating the International Day of Older Persons. I know you might be seated back and wondering, what has this got to do with me back at home? But I'm pretty sure within your family structure, you might have an elder person in that particular household. So how does this day impact them? And we just want to have a discussion with Ambassador Kinuthia Wamwangi, who is joining us from our City Center studios. And thank you so much for your time, even as we anticipate this particular auspicious day that is set to be celebrated just tomorrow. And I'd like to begin on the 2021 theme, which highlights digital equity for all ages, and it sort of affirms the need for access and meaningful participation in digital world by older persons. Is this the reality? I think that's a proper place to start, even as technology is changing day by day. What's your take on this, sir?
Thank you very much, Jesse. I think it is very, very appropriate to what you have said, that the older persons are finding it a big challenge to deal with technology when they have to deal all their matters through technological devices, through technological applications. Starting with the list of them are called the M-Pesa. They have to communicate sometimes through WhatsApp, through messages, through telephones. Even the use of telephone is the simple thing like use of a telephone. It can be a challenge to an older person because take for instance, my mother, she never went to school. So each time she has to tell somebody, can you ring this, look for this number and ring so and so. When you receive the number, she doesn't know where to press to say hello. She doesn't know where to press to increase even the volume. Simple actions like that. And then there are, of course, the bigger applications, the bigger and complicated things like accounting for your money in the bank, whereby you have to do internet banking, or you have to receive your statements through the phone and so forth. So I've just talked about the simpler things, but everything these days, including paying for electricity, you have to use the tokens, and even educated people, if you tell them now to fill the token or to use the token, the power and lighting tokens, they may not know how to use them, and they are educated. So all these things are getting very complicated, even for somebody like me. There are areas where I don't want to go to because I feel that I'm really held down, and I'm not used to such areas. So it's like we all have got to go back to school and learn afresh. So I'm even surprised that teachers are complaining they are being told to go back to school. Older persons are even worse because they have to go back to learning new ways of living, because this is a must for your life, for the comfort of your living.
Okay, Ambassador, and we appreciate it's a sign of change in time. So how best do we plug in older persons? Because, I mean, the digital world, this technology keeps on changing time and time again. So how do we enable them? Because as much as I understand, even cash transfer programs might be happening through this digital media. So what's your take on enabling these older persons to plug in into this particular theme in terms of engaging in the digital front? What's your take on this briefly?
One, I know even there's a crisis in cash transfer because a lot of older persons will use young people to go and maybe get their money. And when they have access to your phone, the first thing they do is to freezer. They even borrow more than what you are getting from the government. And these are issues that have come to me and I have interacted with, so that you find the older person may not even be benefiting from what they are getting from the government. But we are asking for both short-term and long-term. Yesterday, I know there was, yesterday and today, there is an organization called Kalika, which is based in Dagoretti. They were teaching older persons as part of the celebrations of this week. They were teaching older persons on how to use the smartphones. And in fact, today after this, I'm going to join them as a guest of honor. So one is to impress upon community groups, to form such groups and begin to give education on how to use these applications and how to use this equipment of all sorts. And then there's one way which we are trying to advocate, that the government can come out with a simplified curriculum that targets the older persons. And under the Big Four manufacturing, we are also trying to advocate for the government to promote the production of gadgets that can easily be used by older persons, you know, so that the government itself takes part in interpreting technology into a simpler technology for older persons. And I'm sure it will work.
Okay, we surely hope to see some developments happening right there, especially with the robust manufacturing industry right here in the country. But since we've just highlighted a fraction of the cash transfer programs, are they still in effect? Are there any challenges with this particular cash transfer program that is set to target the older persons? What can you say about it so far? Is it achieving its intended purpose?
First of all, we must commend, thank, and accolade the government for having introduced the cash transfer program. It is a very, very good program, and unlike other things we are talking about, it's already implemented. But like any other thing, or like any other program, it has its own challenges. And in particular, the challenges are the inability to reach on a regularized or on a regular basis to reach the intended beneficiaries. Sometimes you'll find the beneficiaries will go for up to 4 months, 5 months without getting the money. But when the money comes, it comes in bulk. So they also enjoy the savings because they are getting it in bulk. But I can tell you, if you talk to the beneficiaries, they will tell you that this is a big relief, and they have not managed how to use that money effectively for their use. So it's a good thing, but that is the challenge. And at the same time, the other challenge is that the government has not been able to reach all the people that are qualified to receive the cash transfer. And as you may well know, or you may not know, there is 1.2 million people who are entitled to receive this cash transfer. And at the moment, only 833,000 are getting the cash, are getting the money. So there is an outcry from the remaining 300,000 plus for them to be included. For us, as the ambassador for older persons, we advocate that the margin should be widened, so that because only those who are 70 and above are entitled, we are saying bring the threshold lower and put it at 65, because people begin to struggle very much around that area. So we shall keep on pushing, and we want you to educate people that that's a challenge, or people who are excluded, but who are also suffering outside the margin or outside the bracket of entitlement.
Okay, okay. You've just mentioned something about exclusion, Ambassador, and I want to delve deeper into perhaps the inclusion of older persons into various vulnerable groups. Just yesterday, we've seen a couple of changes at the cabinet level, and the Senior Citizens Affairs, Special Programs and Senior Citizens Affairs has been moved to the Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Special Programs. Perhaps reflect on this. Is this a good move going forward? Even as we talk about inclusion, should we envision a future where older persons are included into that group of youth, women, and people with vulnerabilities in terms of disabilities? Should we include them into that particular group to enable them economically? Well, what's your take on that?
Yes, I've always argued that I think we call it moving of chairs, is not enough. Moving a program from one area to another, it may not be the answer, but we still wait to see what happens. Right now, I can tell you, the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection was very highly enthused, engaged, passionate about older persons. I don't know how we are going to reproduce that culture unless we move the whole group of officers who are in the Ministry of Labor to the public service. To build that kind of culture and passion and enthusiasm can take quite a lot of time, because I know in the last 10 years the ministry has been struggling to create a perspective on older persons. And now they have managed, and we as older persons have been very happy with all the programs and things that have been done. So the Ministry of Public Service will have to touch the ground running, because there are very great needs and very important things that must be done. And we are advocating that this is the time to move from planning to implementation. So we are asking that immediately, and this is now an immediate need too, and this is not the first time I'm saying it, and I'm not saying it because you are saying it. I said it last year, I said it in May here in the studio with you, that it is critical and important for the older persons to be recognized as a marginalized group in accordance to Article 57, and immediately included in the AGPO program, that is access to government procurement programs. It is an essentiality, and it is a very important step that must be taken immediately. People are suffering, people are being discriminated, and they must be salvaged from their suffering.
As we continue with this, and perhaps as you add your voice as well, the policy and legislation front, is it all good to go in terms of catering for these older persons in society right here in Kenya? Is there a lacuna perhaps you could point out that needs to be straightforward or streamlined rather, in order to perhaps better the lives of these older persons? Or it all boils down to implementation, because at times implementation is the issue in most problems facing the older persons in the country. What's your take on this?
First of all, Jesse, I'm very happy that you have me here, and so that we as an ambassador for older persons, I can say on their behalf those things that are ailing and that are paining us. There is no legislation that has been passed to guide the treatment of older persons or dealing of older persons. Right now, there are two bills in Parliament. I think one is in National Assembly, and the other one is in Senate. There is one called the Older Members of Society Bill, which is 2017, which is a private members bill. It's National Assembly. I think that one is in National Assembly. And then there is another one called the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Bill 2020. This is the one that is in the National Assembly, and the other one is in Senate. And both of them have been there lying for the last 5 years. Nothing is happening. And I'm wondering whether the people representing citizens in the National Assembly and Senate are themselves not representatives of older persons. Why should such bills remain unattended to for such a long time? Secondly, there are no policies and regulations that are in operation which are specific to the older persons and which are intended to cushion the older persons. So that's why I'm telling you, Jesse, that we should move from planning to action or to implementation. If we had the regulations in place, the policies in place, we have the legislation in place, and in particular, there is one major policy which is very critical, the older persons policy, which now looks after all those things that are in the Constitution. It makes sure that you have a body corporate which can look after the older persons, which can participate on their behalf, which can do more than what the ambassador can do, and which can articulate their issues. So we need this body, Older Persons Council, the Older Persons Council, National Older Persons Council in place, and with the people talking on a daily basis, planning on a daily basis, executing on a daily basis for and on behalf of the older persons.
Okay, Ambassador, well noted, and thanks for your contribution right there. And we hope for a faster legislation process. And as we finalize, Ambassador Wamwangi, I think just speak to the current day and developments. We have a majority of youth in the country who might be interacting with older persons who are equally amongst the population. A word of advice, perhaps. And looking back, are there any challenges you've noted in terms of the vaccination process in the country? We well know the elderly persons who are amongst that group of people who are fronted as priority groups. What's your take on the vaccination drive, and perhaps a word of advice to the young fellas who are engaging with the older persons in society? Briefly, sir.
I think those are two questions in one. And be patient with me. First of all, there has been a lot of problems with ageism. The young people have tended to see the older persons as a liability, and they see them as people who should be excluded from the national benefits. You have heard this, that older people should not be in employment. They have been whisked out. They have been flushed out of jobs. They are being, even recently in Parliament, you remember there was a motion by the National Assembly giving a warning to the Treasury to remove people who are above 61 from their jobs. But you see, the African Protocol on Human Rights prohibits people from being discriminated, and it also gives us the rights to be employed, to be protected, to be socially protected, to be free of discrimination, and therefore that's why we are saying the African Protocol on Human Rights should also be adopted in Kenya and implemented, so that the older persons can have the right to exist, the right to be employed, the right to production, and the right to health, and the right to all other things that our people are entitled to, so that as long as you are able and your body can move and it can work and your brain is clear, then you should not be excluded from earning, from employment, from producing, and from doing all those things. Then there is something we call intergeneration integration. We are trying to promote the integration between the youth and the older persons. And that is one of the big programs institutions like Kenya Association of Geriatric and Genetology are doing. I'm an advisor to the Kenya Association of Geriatrics and Genetology. And that's one program where we are really promoting the intergeneration programs. And you will find that our Secretary General is above 50, and the Assistant Secretary General is hardly 30 years. So that we are together in such an association to teach these young people the need to appreciate the existence of the older persons. As far as the jab is concerned, of course, one, access is difficult because it is being applied in maybe in urban centers, and a lot of older people in the rural areas. It's not publicized as to where you can go and get this thing. So you have to know somebody who knows somebody so that they can direct you there, and then you have to campaign. If these old persons arrive here, please give them a chance because they can't stand. They are incontinent, therefore they can't wait for long. So it's really like it's a favor. So I think the jab should move to the villages and to the nearest places to the people. And I'm glad I have heard that one of our organizations, the Age Concern, is in Narok now mobilizing the application of the jab to the older persons. So I think the government should become more aware, more than just pronouncing priority over the people. They should also action that priority by taking the jab nearer to the people and publicize the stations where these jabs are accessible. And then when you go to the station, sometimes you get magendo business where you get people who are very young, maybe are being given a chance of older people. We don't want people to struggle when they go for this thing. And we want people to be empathetic to the older persons when they appear for service anywhere in the country. Thank you very much.
Well, Ambassador, it's great to engage with you, and it's clear to see that the plight of older persons is quite close to your heart. So we should be more empathetic and don't look at the older persons as a vulnerability to society. All this to do with the International Day of Older Persons that is set to be celebrated just tomorrow in line with the theme Digital Equity for All Ages. Ambassador Kinuthia Wamwangi joining us from our City Centre studios just to highlight some of the issues that need to be streamlined as we move forward and celebrate this all-important day. Thanks for your time. I'll ask to shift focus now. Today is the World Heart Day, or rather it was yesterday, and it's an annual event that seeks to create public awareness of heart diseases. The main emphasis on this particular day was the prevention